motion to replace the rules proposed by Representative Bates with the rules that have been used in the past, which are now in your seat pockets. I will apologize, they were not there earlier because I had planned to read them. The chair at this time wishes to recognize Representative Jasper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I will withdraw my amendment, at least temporarily, because as the parliamentary situation is, my amendment, which would be to adopt the rules that many of us would like to see adopted, would not be by roll call vote, which would defeat the purpose of the Shurtleff amendment. So by withdrawing the motion right now, at least you have the rules, the alternative rules in front of you. We will go to a vote on the rules as presented by the representative from Wyndham, and if that motion is defeated, then my amendment will come forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, is the parliamentary situation clear? Representative O'Brien? Members, please. We have to listen. We're trying very hard to hear what's happening here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, an inquiry as to the parliamentary situation is the Bates amendment to adopt the rules before the House.
Yes, it is.
Is it, have we now come to the point of vote?
I beg your pardon.
Are we now voting on it? Are we ready?
We are going to be voting on it, and we are going to be voting on it by paper ballot, which the House has just adopted on a vote of 222 to 171.
And so has the time come for a voting parliamentary inquiry?
I beg your pardon?
Has the time come for a voting parliamentary inquiry?
Yes, as soon as everybody is sitting down in their seats like they're supposed to be. Can you tell me? I told you in your mind. Representative Shurtleff, you're recognized for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, now that we are back to the Bates amendment, as so-called, if I know that that amendment is contrary to what is in the best interest of this House, and if I know that that amendment would deny the members the long-cherished tradition of having a secret ballot to elect their speaker, would I now press the red button and vote no? Not press the red button, but write no on your paper ballot and defeat the Bates amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If you are in favor of the Bates rules, you will vote yes. The ballots do have a yes/no for check mark. If you are opposed and wish to take some other action, you would vote no. Chair recognizes Representative O'Brien for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, if I understand that as representatives, transparency is one of the most important promises we make to our constituents. We don't make that, and I know we don't make that promise when we go into vote in an election, but we do when we vote in this House floor. And if I understand that this issue has nothing to do with anything other than transparency. And Madam Speaker, if I understand that as a Republican member, I was asked by every leader of our party to stay with the caucus, and that this is the vote where we're asking for you to stay with the caucus, would I vote yes on the written ballot? Thank you.
The question before the House is the adoption of the Bates rules proposal. It is being done by secret ballot. If you are in favor of those rules, you will vote yes. If you are opposed, you will vote no. I'm asking the staff to pass out the ballots now, and I'd ask you to please remain in your seats after marking your ballot, because we will be having a balloting procedure and recording of that. There were 386 ballots cast and 109 193 needed to, 194 actually needed to adopt the rules as proposed by Representative Bates. There were 162 yes votes and 224 no votes. The rules as proposed did not pass. For what purpose?
Arise to offer a new motion for a new set of rules, and those would be the rules that were passed out during our lunch break, which are the traditional rules of the organizational day for the election of officers.
Representative Jasper places before the House the organization day proposed rules which were placed in your seat pockets during lunch. Representative O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I second the motion and I move the question.
Representative O'Brien seconds the motion, moves the question. Without objection, we will do a voice vote. Is that okay? All right, the question is on the the proposed groundwork for election that were put in your seat pockets at lunch. If you're all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes have it and the ground rules have been adopted. I would like to say this has been quite an exercise. I thought maybe we could finish by now, but we are not. So, I have to spend my plate. Nominations for Speaker are in order, and the Chair recognizes the member from Haverhill, Representative Rick Ladd, for the purpose of making a nomination.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just changed the speech here to good afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. For those who are new, welcome to our House. I stand before you today to nominate our next Speaker of the House. During the past few days, I have attempted to identify traits that define leadership qualities for our new Speaker, and I believe our new Speaker has these traits. First, I go back in my experience. Upon receiving my commission as a young second lieutenant after 6 long months at OCS at Fort Sill, I was approached by a staff sergeant who offered me some friendly advice. He said, "Lieutenant, if you want to come home from Vietnam, forget the textbook way of doing things you were taught at Fort Sill. At your next duty station, find an experienced NCO. Listen and follow his advice. I know that our next Speaker, House leadership, and all of us sitting in this body will follow the advice of that NCO I met 46 years ago. Listen respectfully to differing positions and perspectives, and work together to make New Hampshire an even better place to be. Second, there is not a day that passes that I don't run into a Haverhill constituent who asks me, and I had a call on the phone this morning coming down the road on 993. Mr. Representative, what are you doing about these rules, these regulations, and the cost of doing business down there in Concord? I can now reply, our Speaker believes in limited government and fiscal responsibility. The House will develop a budget based upon well-defined revenue projections, and we will work to gradually eliminate state debt. So our children and our grandchildren, and looking at most of us there, we probably have grandkids, so they can afford to remain in this state. Third, from my years as a teacher and school principal, I know that schools must be safe, have qualified staff, and have a high school diploma that means something. Strong leadership is visible in successful schools. The same applies to this body. Adults, as students, work best when rules are clear and discipline is maintained. Our next speaker is a leader. Leadership requires passion for reaching difficult and deciding difficult issues, and bring groups together for the common good of all. Further, it is a safe bet that we will struggle, as we did this morning, on contentious issues. But without struggle and open discussion, there's often no result. Fourth and last, the speaker and every member of this body sets the tone of the House. Whether speaking from the well, as I am right now, pushing a green or red button at your seats, or making a ruling from the podium. I know Representative William O'Brien possesses the leadership traits that I've mentioned to this point. He has visited Haverhill, where I live, on many occasions, and dealt with a group of folks which are in the chamber we call the good old boys and the good old gals. And he's been very informative and cooperative in working with us all. He has stated a desire to be more inclusive. I am anxious to move forward with Representative Bill O'Brien as our next House Speaker. He has the knowledge, a caring attitude, and stated desire to work with both sides of the aisle, and this is our opportunity to get New Hampshire back on track. Madam Chair, it is my distinct honor and privilege to nominate Representative William O'Brien as the next Speaker of our House. Thank you.
Representative Ladd places the name of Representative Bill O'Brien in nomination for Speaker. The Chair recognizes the member from Greenland, Representative Pam Tucker, for the purpose of seconding the nomination.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. And for the record, Representative from Haverhill, I don't have any grandchildren yet. Today I rise to second the nomination of Representative Bill O'Brien to be the Speaker of the House. Over the past 3 terms that I've been here, I've had the pleasure of working with Bill on a number of important issues that are facing our state. Throughout the many, many times that we've worked in partnership, I've been consistently impressed with Bill's high integrity, his extraordinary knowledge of the issues, and his understanding of the legislative process. He's always been willing to work with any member who needs guidance, including me, direction or ideas on how to move the policies forward. He's been and will be a tremendous resource to anyone in this room, regardless of party or views, and whoever needs assistance. When he said his door is always open, he really does mean it. Both in the House and in his business life, he has consistently demonstrated that he can work together with people with different backgrounds and different viewpoints. He has made the commitment to growing New Hampshire's economy, and that's just what this House will have to focus on over the next few years. And under Bill as our Speaker, we can do that. We need someone who can help to bring better jobs to our state, and Bill has a plan to do that. Bill already served as Speaker, so there won't be any on-the-job training. Lessons he's learned, as every new Speaker must learn, leave him prepared to carry forward the House's position and to ensure that this body is as effective as possible over the next 2 years. Bill has always shown that he knows how to help members of this House reach their full potential. This means the new members, all of our new freshman class out there, will get an opportunity to grow and have their voices heard. And this will continue with him as our Speaker. Bill will work with our Senate and our governor to achieve the policies that will move our state in the right direction. This is going to have to be a collaborative effort, but one that always works to ensure that the voice of this House is heard. For all of these reasons and many more, I urge you to support Bill O'Brien as our next speaker. Thank you.
Representative Tucker seconds the nomination of Representative Bill O'Brien. Further nominations for Speaker are in order. And the Chair recognizes the member from Nashua, Representative Cindy Rosenwald, for the purpose of making the nomination.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. I am honored to nominate Steve Shurtleff for Speaker. I have known Steve for 10 years, since he and I were both first elected to the House. And during that time, I have come to know him as a man of absolute integrity. He is a man you can trust. Over his 5 terms, Steve has served with distinction in both majority and minority. As majority leader for the past 2 years, Steve has been a strong supporter of the issues important to the people of New Hampshire. Good jobs and a growing economy, great public schools, a college education within reach, and high-quality, affordable health care. Steve is well-liked and, more importantly, well-respected by members on both sides of the aisle. His warmth and his friendliness come from his belief in fairness, opportunity, and dignity for all people. He understands the importance of working together to achieve consensus, but he will never compromise on these core values that are the foundation of the American dream. Colleagues, as we embark on the next term, the House must choose a Speaker who embodies our values to serve the people of New Hampshire. Steve Shurtleff is that candidate. I urge my colleagues to vote for him. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Representative Rosenwald places the name of Representative Steve Shurtleff in nomination for Speaker. The Chair recognizes the member from Lebanon, Representative Andy White, for the purpose of seconding the nomination.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise today to enthusiastically second the nomination of Steve Shurtleff for Speaker of the New Hampshire House. I'll give you a really long speech about all the things that make Steve the perfect candidate for Speaker. But I'm actually going to leave you with some thoughts, many of them from you in this room. Members from both political parties. Integrity. Personal and professional integrity. Steve is described as honest, fair, friendly, compassionate, persistent, skilled, flexible, respectful, and a true gentleman. A little bit about Steve's background. A New Hampshire native, Concord police officer, supervisor of the United States Marshal, and a Vietnam veteran. Like in his professional career during his many terms here in the New Hampshire legislature, Steve has served in many leadership roles. Committee chair, assistant Democratic leader, and most recently, majority leader. Steve Shurtleff knows the leadership roles, and he has demonstrated both his willingness and his ability to work across the aisle, and he knows how to lead. Leadership requires not only passion. Leadership also requires compassion. Please join me and vote Steve Shurtleff for Speaker of the New Hampshire House. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative White seconds the nomination of Representative Steve Shurtleff for Speaker of the House. Are there any further nominations? Representative Wolf, are you rising to make a nomination? You may state your inquiry.
After the first ballot vote, will there be an opportunity to enter other nominations?
That will be up to the House. Right now, my plan was to declare nominations closed. I think we wait and see what happens with the vote, and then we proceed from that point if there is a need. I cannot answer your inquiry because that would be up to the House.
But it isn't written in the rules that we can do that. In the rules presently that we're working under, we cannot nominate afterwards.
I don't believe the rules speak to that. They don't speak to it at all. It will be up to the House.
Then, Madam Chairman, I do wish to place someone in nomination. Okay,
I think, seeing no further nominations, the chair is going to declare that nominations for speaker are closed. And I'm going to ask you to stay in your seats, and you will be getting ballots. And please stay in your seats, and we will do this all over again. Excuse me, the chair is going to ask you to hold up on those for a while. I was just reminded that somebody has to accept the nomination. Representative O'Brien, it's been one of those days. It really has. I apologize to the House.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I know the body here after this morning is wondering if any of us want to accept the nomination for Speaker. So indeed, I thought it really useful that I get up here and tell my colleagues that with enthusiasm, with dedication, and with a love for the state of New Hampshire, I accept the nomination to be Speaker of the New Hampshire House. I thank you, all of you, for the chance to speak with you today about that. And I appreciate all the patience that you showed today, you new members. That is a process, a deliberative process that sometimes you go through and often find, and I think perhaps this time find that the best result is achieved. I also want to thank my colleagues, Rick Ladd and Pam Tucker, for their nominations. It is truly a pleasure to work with people such as Representative Ladd and Representative Tucker, and then have them come forward and nominate you for a position like this. It is truly an honor to receive that. I certainly hope to work with all of you this term, and I certainly hope to gain the same trust with all of you that I've apparently gained with Representative Ladd and Representative Tucker. Mostly, I look forward to working with 400 members of the House that share the passion that so many of us do. And with members that share passion, we know this, we don't share goals sometimes, we don't share the same view of legislation, but there are things we do share. We do share a concern for New Hampshire. We share a concern for our young people who are leaving New Hampshire because this economy is no longer growing the way it did when I came up here. And indeed, when I was a young man in Massachusetts looking north and saying, those people in New Hampshire have really put it together. And I think there's so many of us, we share this desire to see if we can recapture the economic jewel of the Northeast that New Hampshire used to be. Because people in New Hampshire are not getting jobs. Particularly if they're young, they need to stay here. Our young people are leaving. People in New Hampshire are working harder and gaining less, falling further and further behind. And the reason they're doing that is because they're not getting raises. As I went door to door this past election season and talked to folks, they were saying, my spouse hasn't had a raise in 6 or 7 years. There's a reason why that is the case. And the reason has to do with us walking away from what had been an advantage in New Hampshire, an advantage of low taxes, an advantage of reasonable regulation, an advantage of schools that work, and schools that didn't avoid providing, not provide the education that teachers and parents thought were best, and not bureaucrats in Concord and Washington thought best. I think that some of us on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, share these concerns and share these understanding of both. And I look forward to working with all of you to solve them. I don't have a monopoly, none of us has a monopoly on solutions. And as I told the governor after I was nominated and I spoke to the governor, I said, if you join us in understanding the problems, we look to you to give us your solutions, because we certainly want to incorporate those into what is good for New Hampshire. I hope that every one of you, if I get elected speaker, will understand that my office door is always open, that this process will always be open, and that I want to talk with everyone of you. If it's a problem with legislative staff, does that have to work for all of us? We can work with that. If it's a legislative issue, I want to hear from all of you. Let us make this an open process where compromise doesn't mean walking away from the principles, but compromise means finding shared solutions to important problems. And that's the compromise that I will promise you day after day, session day after session day of this upcoming term. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the member for Penn, Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Representative Rosenwald and Representative White for their very kind remarks in nominating me. I was born here in Concord. My dad, Charlie Sherwood, was a plumber, and my mom worked across the street at the New Hampshire State Library. I graduated in '66 from Bishop Brady and ended up going in the Army and spent 3 years in the military, including a year and a half in Vietnam. When I got out, I was hired by the Concord Police Department, and then was hired by the U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Marshals, as a Deputy U.S. Marshal, and spent 3 years in Cleveland, Ohio, my first duty station. Then I was able to transfer back home here to New Hampshire. I retired in 2000 as a supervisory deputy, and over the years I earned my associate's degree and became a substitute school teacher in the Merrimack Valley School District, primarily in special needs classes. And then in 2004, I decided to run for the New Hampshire House. And as there are 400 members of this body, I think there are 400 reasons why we decided to run, besides the big money. I'd like to share with you my reason for running. When I was in Vietnam, I wrote a story in the Armed Forces publication, Stars and Stripes. And the story was about a 27-year-old Army Air Corps pilot by the name of Colin Kelly. On December 10, 1941, Captain Kelly led a successful bombing run of Japanese shipping off the Philippine coast. On his way back to his base at Clark Field, his B-15 was attacked by Japanese Zeros. The plane caught on fire. Captain Kelly ordered his crew to bail out, as he stayed at the controls to keep the plane stable. Just as the last man jumped, the plane exploded in midair and Captain Kelly drowned. President Roosevelt was notified in Washington of the successful attack on Japanese ships, coming just 3 days after Pearl Harbor. Then the president was told that Captain Kelly had died, and even sadder, he left a young wife and a 3-year-old son back home in Florida. So President Roosevelt did something that had never been done before and done since. He wrote a letter to whomever was the President of the United States in the year 1956, and that ironically was General Eisenhower. And President Roosevelt said in his note, he said, "Dear Mr. President, as I write this letter to you in December of 1941, America is engaged in a great war. But I know that the Allied powers will dominate over the Axis, that democracy will triumph over fascism. And I know that because the brave young men and women serving in our armed forces, people like Captain Colin Kelly, Mr. President, as you read this note in the year 1956, Colin Kelly Jr. will be turning 18 years old. As a personal favor to me and as a favor for a grateful nation, I ask that you appoint his son to West Point. He said, the least that this nation can do for those who have died in defense of our liberties is to make sure that children receive a quality education. I never forgot that. And then in 2004, as young men were dying in Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting for our nation, I decided to run for the House to put a bill in. And I got elected. And I filed my first year, my one and only bill, House Bill 687. And the bill said that any child of a member of the armed forces who is a New Hampshire resident who should die while on active duty, that child will get 4 years of free tuition at the university, at the state college, or at a community college. And I went to the committee, and the committee voted to retain it over the year till the following year. And then I learned subsequently that the university system was lobbying extremely hard to kill my bill. And then a lot of people came to my help. Veterans and non-veterans, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, and conservatives. And the bill got passed. And on June 8, 2005, President Governor Lynch signed it into law, a public signing. And that bill, I learned my first and most valuable lesson as a member of this body. And that's how much we all can accomplish when we work together in a bipartisan fashion. So as elected and just speaker, I would make some promises. I would promise that half of the chairs of the standing committees, the chairs would be Republicans, the other half would be Democrats. And those who had Republican chairs, they'd have vice chairs would be Democrats and vice versa. I would promise to name a senior Republican as Speaker Pro Tem. I would promise that the Speaker would be more on the British model, where the Speaker is a facilitator and not a political leader. And in conclusion, let me make one more promise. I would promise to remain the same person that you've gotten to know over the last 10 years, and I would not change. Thank you. God bless New Hampshire. God bless the General Floyd.
Now, will the staff continue to distribute the ballots? I am so sorry. The House will come to order. 387 votes were cast. 194 votes were needed for election. Representative Bill O'Brien had 190 votes. Representative Steve Shirley had 168 votes. No one has reached the majority of the votes cast. I recognize Representative Trudgeon for a motion.
Madam Chair, thank you. I move that we reopen nominations, and I would like to speak to my motion.
Representative Zajac has moved that nominations be reopened, and he would like to speak to his motion.
The method behind my madness is this. The House may want a third way, and this is the opportunity to provide that third way. If, in the event that the third way is unsuccessful, I would expect that that nominee would abandon all hope, and then we just respect the will of the plurality. But I think we should open it for that reason. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Hunt?
I guess I'm having trouble understanding how this can be when the rules that I was told that I thought were voted on does not offer any opportunity for any new candidates to be proposed. It says that prior to open the session, inform the clerk of their candidacy. So, and then there would be no blank line for write-in. So even the previous ballot vote we just took was an illegal vote. So I don't know how we can have any new candidates at this time.
Member from Stowe, Representative Newton.
Madam Speaker, the original rules that were proposed, that were voted down, specifically stated that no other candidates would be allowed, no other nominations would be allowed, and that any candidates at the end would have to drop out. The current rules do not explicitly in any way, shape, or form preclude the nomination of any other candidate. By the lack of preclusion, it is presumed it is allowable. And I would ask the chair rule in that fashion.
At this point, the chair would rule that the only thing that speaks to nominations is on each ballot, the clerk will have printed in alphabetical order the name of any candidates who, prior to the opening of the session, informed the clerk of their candidacies. There will be one blank line for write-in candidates. There is nothing there that says you cannot let me finish speaking before you start waving your hands. There is nothing there to say you cannot reopen nominations. There is nothing to say you can't, or you can. I will tell you, I have done what I've always done on Organization Day. I have 2 sets of ballots with people's names and a blank line for write-in, and I have a set of ballots that is totally blank. That is the preparation I do before this day. I did put on the ballot the names of the people that had notified me ahead of time. But we also allow write-ins, so I don't know how you say that there to be no other nominations. Representative Baldassaro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm reading over the rules here. Basically, I have to agree with you. There will be one blank line for write-ins. Now, I have to be one of the counties, and I see many, I think 7 blank over there, with maybe 1 or 2 write-ins on there. This makes no sense now here because it didn't fall in the way somebody didn't want it. Now let's throw another candidate up there. The House has spoken, Madam Chair. I'm hoping we move forward and put the right man in the position who came out number 1.
No one has received the majority of the votes cast. There were 16 write-in votes. There were a few blank ballots. Blank ballot counts as a ballot cast. There were a certain number of ballots cast. It was 387. You need 194 for election. No one received 194 votes. Representative Weber? Representative Weber, you'd like to recommend?
Yes, Madam Clerk, I would like to speak to the motion, if I may.
Yes.
My understanding of the motion was that the motion is to reopen nominations and that the House now will be allowed to vote on whether the House as a whole wants to reopen nominations. So if you do not wish to reopen nominations, you don't have to vote to reopen nominations. But if you wish to consider another candidate, am I not correct that you would vote yes?
Thank you, Representative Weber. Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm confused to whether or not it says in here that the clerk will have printed in alphabetical order the name of any candidate who, prior to the opening of the session, informed the clerk of their candidacy. There will be one blank line for write-ins. Which candidates informed the clerk prior to the session of their candidacy?
Representative O'Brien, Representative Sherwood. Further questions?
So then, in order to open up nominations, why wouldn't we have to suspend the rules that were approved that say only the candidates who had informed you prior to the session, which that would require a 2/3 vote.
Excuse me, Representative Simmons, I'm going to answer your question. It doesn't say only those candidates could be considered. It says that balloting continues until an officer is elected. Nowhere does it say only those candidates who prior to the opening of the session informed the clerk of their candidacies may be considered. It is not there. Further question?
Presuming that we're going to allow further nominations if this body approves it, according to the rules we passed, it says on each ballot, it will have printed the name of candidates who prior to the opening, so that each ballot would have to have Representative Shurtleff and Representative O'Brien's name and only those names.
Now, only those who approached me prior to the opening of the session.
Only those two, no?
They were the only two who approached me prior to the session. But it doesn't say anything about anybody else.
No, so I just want to clarify.
Clarify.
So if we were to nominate a third party, if someone was to make a nomination of, whoever, their name could be considered in the vote, but it couldn't be printed on the ballot. And you couldn't use a blank ballot because the rules say that the names have to be printed in alphabetical order on the ballot. In the rules we approved.
I think you're splitting hairs. We are going next to Representative Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Whereas you previously declared the nominations closed, according to the rules of the rules for Organization Day and the 2014 New Hampshire House rules, would reopening nominations constitute a suspension of the rules, and in so being, would it require a 2/3 vote?
No, there was no vote to close nominations. I declared nominations closed. So a motion to reopen nominations would be decided by a majority vote. Representative Baldessaro.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With your years of experience, please educate me in one area. Under Section 516, illegal votes in the Mason's Manual, when a majority or other proportions of the votes cast is required to take any action, the illegal votes in blank ballots are not considered in the computation. Thus, when 48 votes were cast, including 3 blank ballots and 2 ballots were illegal, only 43 legal ballots were cast, and 22 votes were a majority and would elect a candidate or carry a motion. Can you please take a look at
I have seen that. However, the practice and precedent of the New Hampshire House, and there are several people in this room that can attest to it, has been that a blank vote is a ballot cast. And we have said that you need a majority of the ballots cast. Member McKean, Representative Roberts, the Parliamentary Inquiry.
Madam Speaker, I have a real simple question.
Oh, good.
Okay. We just had a vote and no one got the majority.
That's correct.
We could do this over and over and over and no one would get the majority. What happens then? Would it then be wise to open it up to other candidates?
That is a question for your colleagues. There is a motion on the floor. Representative Stefanik.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to challenge the chair on her ruling on the fact that the votes that were cast as blank should not count, and therefore the election should be based upon only those votes that were either write-ins or voted for one of the 2 published candidates as is listed here in Mason's. And I challenge the chair on that.
Okay.
Ask for a roll call vote.
I'm allowed to speak on that. I will tell you that according to our House rules, which you have adopted, practice and precedent precedes Masons, takes precedence over Masons. The practice and precedent in this House, and there are several people in the room who have been ballot counters for a long time, has been that a blank ballot is a ballot cast and a legal ballot to be included in the total. If you didn't want to vote, you didn't have to cast a ballot. If you cast a blank ballot, you are casting a ballot. That is the ruling of the chair. Now, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to speak against the motion to challenge the chair and in favor of the ruling of the chair. The rules that we adopted, each of you have, you go to the third paragraph, the first line, election of candidates will be by majority vote of those present and voting. That makes it very clear that if you put in a vote, you have voted, just as we do in any election. That ballot has been cast. So there is no question here that the chair's ruling is correct. Whether you're happy with the outcome or not, we need to be cognizant of our rules and the proper interpretation of them. And the chair is clearly correct. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Representative Eaton?
Madam Speaker, I would just state from institutional memory and having gone through multiple elections and when there have been multiple ballots, that it has been practicing precedent, has been the accepted procedure. It is the House rule that all ballots cast, whether checked, unchecked, written in, or blank, count as ballots cast.
Representative Baldassare, you have a question of Representative Eaton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, I keep hearing about institutional history. Can you cite any type of dates, any type of history? Where can we get this here? You're telling the people out here, they're laughing. We got a lot of fresh...
Excuse me. Remember to be in order.
I'm still asking.
You're yelling at him. I'm asking you, if you're asking him a question, ask the question.
Madam Chair, I have a voice of authority. If he takes it as I'm yelling, I apologize. Okay? But let me try this again.
I have no problem.
Thank you. I didn't think so. But anyways, where is this precedent that you're saying? We're going by nation rules. I understand what the clerk is saying, but you brought up this history for everyone to look at.
I'm looking at another section of Masons, which is section 511, more than a majority of legal votes cast may be required, which I guess I'd have to read 2 more times to find out if it conflicts with what your questions are. If you're asking me for dates and times, I have days I have a hard time telling you what happened yesterday. And to go back 50 years, I've been there, and it's happened. And I would say one of the times was during the Robert Spiro election in 1976.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To make sure I understand this correctly, because I have been here for 14 terms, 28 years, and I do know that the only time we ever have a private vote is today. So that means I've done this is my 15th time. Obviously, I don't ever recall ever having this particular problem of blank ballots being counted against the potential winner. I've never experienced that. You did say it was happened to the term or two before I was here. So if I understand the rules, the basic rules properly, if the rule is, if you're going to show pattern of practice, I would guess we need to go in recess and we need to go back to the old calendars. You've got to find where that occurred before. Otherwise, all I'm saying is to say it's a pattern of practice is you need to show us that it is a pattern of practice, because there's plenty of us in the room who don't know that as a fact. And so therefore, if you're going to go against the basic rules, you have to show us that this pattern of practice has occurred. And that's all I'm asking. I need to see that.
All right, Representative Hunt, please. For the last 10 organization days, I have been in the chair. I have announced votes from this podium that many times. I have announced that there were blank ballots. They were included in the number cast. Before we even announced the vote, I checked with the chair's chief teller, who happens to be Representative Kirk, and has had this issue come up before, and I said, before anybody asks, blank ballots are ballots cast. Representative Kirk, would you help me out? Would you explain what your response was?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've been counting ballots in these organization days, not for 20 terms, but for a number of terms, probably 5 or 6. And in each case, we include every ballot in the box in the total. That includes all of the marked ballots or the blank ballots, the write-ins as well as the printed numbers. That gives us a total number of ballots cast. In this case, I believe it was 387. So the blank ballots are included in that. In order for a speaker to be elected, he or she must have a majority of that number, in this case 194. So our past practice has been as the clerk has stated, as the chair has stated.
Thank you, Representative Kirk. Representative Smith? Oh, question of Representative Kirk. Representative, will you yield to the question?
With pleasure, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative, with your superior experience, could you explain the difference between a vote that is taken on committee report when, if you are in the room, you must vote, as compared with this vote, which is an entirely different procedure where anyone in the room has the option of not voting if they so chose. But by putting in a blank ballot, they are in fact voting the way they want to vote.
Thank you for the question. I thank the representative from Durham for the question. She is correct. If any of you did not wish to vote, you would simply have, in the common expression, taken a walk and found yourself outside. Or, uniquely to this particular case, simply not gone to the ballot box and stayed in the room. You could have done that. But once you've decided to vote, by placing your ballot in that box, you have cast a vote. And we must include that in the overall total. No matter what you did to that ballot, you could have torn it into little pieces. As long as we could see that it was a ballot, and indeed we had one that was ripped in half, that was a ballot. We put the two pieces together. I don't recall for whom it was voted, but it was counted as one of the ballots. So that represents our history. With all due respect to the challenge, I think the chair in this case has got our past practice correct. And also, as she said, our past practice trumps Mason's. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative O'Brien, rise for...
Parliamentary inquiry. Madam Chair, if I were to request that the member withdraw the challenge of the chair, could I then bring a motion to call the question?
Yes, you could.
I would request that the member withdraw the challenge of the chair. Madam Speaker, I move the question and ask for a division vote on the question.
Representative Stepanek, I couldn't really hear you. Withdraw the challenge? Yes, Representative Stepanek withdraws the challenge of the chair, and we will go to a vote on reopening nominations. I think you're requesting a division vote, is that?
Just to get it done quickly.
If you're requesting a division vote, all members take your seat, please. Turn on your voting stations. Do not turn on other people's voting stations. Are there any? The question before the House is the motion to reopen nominations. The member from Manchester, Representative Simmons, is recognized for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you know, as I know, that we have two very qualified candidates already before us, and that we do not need to open nominations because we do have two very qualified candidates. And if you also know that if we add a third candidate or a fourth candidate, the likelihood of getting to a 50% plus one majority is going to get smaller and smaller, which means it will take hours and hours and hours. You'll join me and you'll push the red button to vote no on opening the nominations. Thank you.
Representative from the House in order, Representative from Walpole, Representative Weber for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable colleagues, if I know that we have two able candidates, but that neither of them achieved a majority, and there were other write-ins and there were blank ballots which were counted in the total, and if we know that there is another way that is being proposed, would you not join with me now and allow that way to be explored and allow another name to be put in nomination by pressing the green button to reopen nominations? Thank you.
Question before the House is the motion to reopen nominations the motion was made by Representative Sytek. Is the parliamentary situation clear? This is a division vote. If you are in favor of reopening nominations, you will be pushing the green button. If you are opposed and wish to continue in a different manner, you will push the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds. If you think all those buttons supposedly have been fixed during the lunch break, do we know? Everyone having voted, the House will attend to the state of the... What? If you haven't voted, you have to come down front and vote. And I think your vote has been recorded. You didn't turn on your voting station, though it hasn't been. You were asked, that's why everybody was asked to turn on their voting stations. Now has everyone voted who was here when the question was put, having turned on your voting stations? The House will attend to the state of the vote. Having voted in the affirmative, 182 having voted in the negative. Nominations are open for the office of Speaker. Now, there is something in the rule that says we have a 15-minute recess. If this happens, I'm going to declare that 15-minute recess. I'm going to ask you not to go too far away because we are going to time this and get it done. We still have lots of people waiting for us to get through this part of the subject. House of Representatives, please.
That's what I was waiting for all day.
We have had our 15-minute recess. Actually, we got 15 minutes and 20 seconds, and some people are much longer than that. But the chair recognizes Representative O'Brien.
And Chair, I move for a recess for Republican caucus to be held at Reps Hall. We can do it here. It will take about 15 minutes.
Representative O'Brien has moved that there be a 15-minute recess for a Republican caucus to be held in Representatives Hall. A division vote has been requested. Is there further discussion on the motion? Representative Hudson, Representative Jasper.
This has been a very long day. We all had our caucuses this morning. We've all heard probably everything that could be said, should be said, probably more in some cases. We still have business to do, and other officers to elect. We need to move on and get out of here today. I would urge you to vote against the motion. Thank you.
A division vote has been requested on the motion by Representative O'Brien to recess for 15 minutes for a Republican caucus to be held in this chamber. Representative Lee?
Madam Speaker, I know that we've already been through balloting, that we need to elect the Secretary of State, the Treasurer, and the Clerk, and that the caucuses have spoken early and long, and a lot of work has been done by everyone. Would I vote now on the pending motion and get on to the business of this House?
If you wish to caucus, allow a Republican caucus in this chamber for 15 minutes, you'll be voting yes. If you don't wish to approve that, you would be voting no. Representative Kirk is recognized to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have many traditions in this House, and one of them is allowing the other party, by whomever is in power, or any party, to caucus. We don't deny that. It's not fair. I urge you to vote in favor of this motion. Whether you like the idea or not, each party should be allowed the caucus when it needs to. Think of what would happen if the Democrats wanted the caucus and the Republicans voted it down. Let's be fair. Vote yes.
The question before the House is the motion for a 15-minute recess to allow for a Republican caucus to take place in this room. That would mean the media would leave, the gallery would be clear, everybody would leave except members of the Republican caucus, and in 15 minutes I will be banging down that door to come back in. This is a division vote. And voting stations are open for 30 seconds. Of all members voted who were here when the question was put, the House will attend to the state of the vote. Voted in the majority, 157 in the minority. I'm going to allow, please, members, stay put for a second. Representative Sherwood would like to make an announcement, which he certainly is entitled to do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'd ask my fellow Democrats to meet me upstairs in the majority room, where it's going to be very cozy. Thank you.
The House is in recess for 15. Just before that recess, we had reopened nominations for Speaker, and the Chair recognizes Representative Holden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sure that what I am going to have to say is going to make me the most popular person here. However, I am honored to nominate the Honorable Sean Jasper for the position of Speaker of the New Hampshire House of Representatives. Sean and I haven't always, may I speak to my motion, Madam Chair?
You're making a nominating speech, so you may speak.
Thank you. Sean and I haven't always seen eye to eye on everything, but he's a respectful person. We have always been able to sit and talk and work things out. I never felt intimidated by Sean. He's been a good representative. He's entering his 11th term. He has the knowledge, he has the history of what has happened in this house. It started out when he was 24 years old. I am honored to nominate him, and I hope that you'll offer your vote for him. Thank you.
The Chair recognizes the member from New London, Representative Kidder, to second the nomination.
Thank you. I rise to second the nomination for Sean Jasper, somebody I've known since I was here in 2004, which was the year that Doug Scanlon was, in fact, elected partially by a minority of the Democrats. As I recall, for my first year, it was a very nonpartisan, and we got stuff done. I think that Sean has been here He understands the House, he understands the system. Sean will do a good job, and I ask that you join with me in voting for Sean Jasper for the Speaker of the House. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the member from Hudson, Representative Jasper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I accept the nomination. It's been a very long and difficult day, and I think perhaps it shouldn't have been had we just gotten to the business of the House. And that's the concern that I have, we need to get to the business of the House. We need to stop playing these games. We spent how many hours now to get to this point we should have been at hours ago. I just came out of a caucus where I was essentially yelled at for 15 minutes without the opportunity to respond.
The House will be in order. The member is allowed to speak.
And this is my concern. This is why I am standing here. The House deserves better. We deserve to respect each other. I am a Republican, and I know many will say I'm not. I have been a Republican since before I was registered to vote. I was here under Doug Scammon. People like to forget the fact that Doug Scammon's team actually submitted the first budget that was actually less than the year before. That's what Doug Scammon accomplished. First budget lower than the prior year's budget. We did get a lot done. I've been accused of all these things in the last few hours in caucus. I will tell you that every single chair of every single committee will be a Republican. Every single vice chair of every single committee will be a Republican. This House has been elected by Republicans and it will be governed by Republicans. But I respect and will work with the minority party. We as Republicans have been in the minority, and we know what it's like to be mistreated, or at least to feel that we are. And I pledge that I will not do that. Because the Speaker of the House, as a previous speaker nominated has said, the Speaker should really not be the political arm of this body. That belongs to the minority offices and the majority offices. And the policy shouldn't be necessarily driven by the Speaker. The policy of this chamber should be driven by the majority, by people coming together and saying, this is what we decided that we want to push as issues. And it's the committees that do the work. And I pledge that I will respect the work of the committees. If I am elected, I will work with the committees, my team would work with the committees, to tell them what our problems were before. But when those committees come out and do their work, and that's where all of you will live, really, is in the committees for the next 2 years, that work will be respected. And that's what my administration would be about. It would be respect. And that is what drove me not to disrespect my caucus, because my name was not placed in nomination on the first ballot.
This is second round of ballot in 3 minutes, and
The rules say the person nominated the first time. Well,
first ballot.
all right. Well, thank you. I stand here and I ask for your vote.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, now that another member of the majority party has been nominated, someone I respect, Representative Jasper, I would hereby withdraw my name from nomination for Speaker. But just let me say that the kindness of you, my friends on both sides of the aisle, that you showed me with your votes would be greatly appreciated always by me. Thank you.
I believe Representative O'Brien has requested that Representative Lynn Over make his second round speech.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's nice to have the microphones back on so we aren't yelling at the podium. I have friends on both sides of the aisle. I have cultivated friends on both sides of the aisle. I served under a former female speaker for 3 terms. I watched her learn a lot from her first term to her third term. I served under Bill O'Brien. I have watched him learn a lot, and I've noticed this morning and this afternoon he's been respectful to people in the caucus. He has always allowed all of us to do what we want, whether it is submitting rules for the caucus to think about or to work on a bill that we needed. The Republican caucus chose Speaker O'Brien over former Speaker Chandler, both honorable men, both excellent candidates. I am going to be supporting the Republican choice for our Speaker candidate today. He has a proven track record of reaching across into all sides of the Republicans to pull his leadership team. He's already done that, as you've seen. Former Speaker Chandler has already said that he would be willing to serve with him again. They made an excellent duo before. Speaker O'Brien has learned. This time he is talking about training all of us, leading the team, delegating authority. Former Deputy Majority Leader Jasper is also an excellent candidate and friend. But my vote is going to be for Bill O'Brien, the Republican caucus choice. I believe he should be our next speaker. Please vote with me. Thank you.
Are there any further nominations? Once again, I will declare that nominations are closed. As is always my practice, I come prepared with a blank ballot. Since the printed ballot, someone has already withdrawn, I have blank ballots prepared, and we will be passing those out. Please stay in your seats until, and when you receive your ballot, we will begin the voting process, and I promise this time we'll start with section 4. The House will come to order. On the third ballot, 380 votes were cast. 191 needed for election. Representative O'Brien had 187. Representative Jasper had 190. No one has reached a majority. Members, please, we have some work we have to do today. I need some more ballots printed. And we have the obligation today to have a joint session with the Senate. Okay, we do have the ballots. I would like Representative Jasper and Representative O'Brien to meet me down here, please. Very important to all of you. candidates have decided there will be no more speeches. They will go directly to a ballot. So, be in your seats or you will not receive one. All members should be in their seats. And the staff will be passing out ballots. Everybody should be in their seats except my staff. Representative Eaton, you recognize for parliamentary inquiry.
Madam Chair, if there are people who were not content with either offer afforded them and chose to write in someone other than the two announced candidates or presented a blank ballot, if those people refrained from voting, would it be likely that we would have a winner one way or the other?
There were 3 ballots cast for someone else. There were no blanks. That probably could have made a difference. I would ask members please to have utmost patience with staff, with each other. We are trying to get you through this day. We also are required by Constitution to have a joint session with the Senate today. The Senate is 2 people away from losing their quorum. The Constitution says we have to elect the Secretary of State and the State Treasurer today. I will tell you they are both unopposed. We also have a election for Sergeant at Arms, and we have a clerk's election. So the faster you can go through this with the least amount of talking and blocking of aisles, the better off we are all going to be. I ask for your patience and your indulgence and your cooperation. Thank you. The House will come to order, and please let me get through this whole thing. On this ballot, there were 377 votes cast. 189 needed for election. There were 4 scattered votes. Representative O'Brien had 178. Representative Jasper had 195. The member from Hudson, Representative Sean Jasper, is the duly elected Speaker of the House for the 2016.
We owe a debt of gratitude to our clerk, who has been